All right, let's open the, this is the East Brandywine Township Planning Commission agenda. This is the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors AM meeting Thursday, December 7th, 2023. And we're going to open the meeting. Oh, excuse me, a recording device will be used during this meeting. Let's open the meeting with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment for agenda items. Rules for conduct of public meetings established by Resolution 2001-08 allows for time allocated to each individual making comment and is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise set by the presiding officer. Additional public comment may be granted at the discretion of the presiding officer at the conclusion of the meeting. It will be 3 minutes. We have minutes of the previous meetings. There's two meetings in here, right? So it's the 16th and
I'm aware of one set of minutes in your packet this morning.
But I saw two.
I make a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors November 16th, 2023 session meeting minutes.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Authorization to pay bills and approve payroll. I have reviewed the bills, and I'll make a motion to authorize to pay the bills and approve the payroll.
So moved.
Is there a second? Oh, I guess that was your second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Old business. I see nothing on the agenda for old business. New business is the McCausland planned street names. Mr. Revin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At its public meeting on August 3rd, 2023, the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors conditionally approved a plan entitled Final Subdivision and Land Development Plan for the McCausland Plank Tract. In a letter dated August 4th, 2023, Township Solicitor Thomas Esty advised the developer of the conditions of approval. Condition 11 reads, street names shall be approved by the U.S. Postal Service, the Chester County Emergency Services, and the Township prior to the recording of the final plan. The developer has reported that the street names suggested below have been accepted by Chester County Emergency Services. Township staff has received a revised plan dated November 17th. Sheet 3 of this plan is attached in your packet. The plan shows the proposed street names as Grayson Lane, Declan Court, Cameron Court, and Lindsay Court. At this time, I respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to accept these street names per the conditions of the final plan approval.
Any questions?
I make a motion to accept the names as read by our township manager.
I'll second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the next is, under new business, is the Cedarville NPDES MS4 presentation. Good morning.
Please bear with me while I do some IT tasks. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Orr Green. I am the environmental team lead with Cedarville Engineering Group in Pottstown. And I am going to speak to you today and give you an annual report on your NPDES MS4 Stormwater Management Program. I'm just going to start off. Sorry, let me make sure I can. There you go. All right. So just kind of setting the stage for the program. What is the MPDES MS4 program? What does it do? And why does the township have to be part of the program? So the program is a federal EPA program that is administered by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And essentially the ultimate goals of this program are to recognize and increase awareness of stormwater as a point source pollution and to manage it from any other point sources such as wastewater or industrial sources. So this is essentially to manage it as. So this is essentially a program that looks at things like street runoff and things like that and manages it to benefit the environment and make sure that our waters are clean. It is, as I mentioned, a state and federal requirement. The way the program runs is it is a permit that is issued by the state for a 5-year permitting term. The first year set of permits started in 2003. We're now coming into the fourth round of permitting now. The township is going to be up for a permitting renewal for the MS4 permit. This permit is needed by municipalities that are considered what small municipal municipal storm sewer systems, separate storm sewer systems. And so it's a lot of, when the program first started, it was a lot of large cities, and now it's kind of gone out into areas where they're slightly less population, but more kind of suburban and urbanizing kinds of areas. It is, as I mentioned, a 5-year permit term, and the township is going to be in a position here to be renewing their permit shortly. The permit itself is actually kind of based on largely a performance-based type system. So it's structured around 6 what are called minimum control measures. Within each of these minimum control measures, there are a number of practices, best management practices, that address how to achieve these minimum control measures. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on each of those BMPs, but I'm going to give you an overview here of the minimum control measures. In addition, because there are areas within the municipal boundaries where waters are classified by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection as being what's called impaired or not being healthy enough to support aquatic life, there is a part that the township also has to take care of or address, and it's through a pollutant reduction plan. So I'm going to talk about both of those items. So quickly, MCMs, the minimum control measures, the first one has to do with public education and outreach. And the first two are very similarly related, involve basically having public education outreach programs, targeted lists of audiences to reach out to in the public, such as citizens, businesses, developers, others. Things like newsletters and other outreach materials. And then a public involvement and participation program that generally involves a public meeting component. This particular meeting, generally we do a presentation once a year for Board of Supervisors to help meet some of these requirements and to bring this information to the public. There is, as part of this, always an annual report on the permit that has to be filed with the department every year. That's also available here as a public record for anyone that wants to see what's contained in that report. And this also contains pieces related to public ordinance, which I know was just, part of this was just updated right around this time last year, public ordinance. The third MCM is illicit discharge detection and elimination. And this essentially is a part of the permit that we talked about. It's a permit for discharge of stormwater, right? So this is to look at things that are actually coming through municipal piping systems or other types of systems that are not stormwater. So this could be things, and that are not permitted in other ways to be there. So this could be things like discharges from car washes. It could be illegal dumping. It could be malfunctioning storm sewers or malfunctioning on-lot systems. So there's a lot of things that could be here. Part of this MCM is that the township has to inventory and monitor these areas to make sure that, first of all, you've identified anywhere where these illicit discharges do exist, and then anywhere that they may exist, are working on how to essentially rectify those problems with whomever may be responsible for them, and also just on an ongoing basis to make sure that what stormwater is staying stormwater and not having other discharges put into it. You actually have, sorry about this, you do an inspection of everything during dry weather conditions once every 5 years to find these discharges. During this last permitting term, all of these were screened, so that was 100% compliance. There are 2 what are called priority outfalls that the township has. These are in areas that are kind of thought of as hot spots, where maybe there is older infrastructure or areas where we know that there may have been issues in the past. And so those are called priority areas, and they are monitored more frequently. But they were also monitored and were compliant. There is a portion, the next section is construction site stormwater runoff. This particular part of the program is generally managed by the township utilizes things through Chester County and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania essentially to meet the requirements of this program. However, you also link through ordinance to make sure that things like building permits and those sorts of things are not issued until the construction site permits are issued and that they're in compliance. So there are ordinance links here between the reliance on the state program and how you are able to show that you're maintaining and using that program in lieu of your own. Number 5 is post-construction stormwater management. This is for structures after we have land development activities or other activities. There are structures often that are on the landscape to maintain the change in stormwater runoff after those projects are implemented. And for this particular, this particular MCM, there are inspections that are done of these BMPs. In May of this year, there was 85 of these BMPs were inspected, and there was a report that was generated. About 20% either a non-compliance issue, a maintenance issue, or not being able to access some of those sites issues. So there are some issues there for the township to follow up on in terms of compliance with the owners of those BMPs. There also was 13 BMP inspections for these post-construction stormwater management BMPs that were for sites that were under an acre. So these are things that are required under township ordinance. Out of those 13, 2 of those were found to be non-compliant. So again, follow-up actions there. Number 6 is essentially it's pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So this is how does the municipality essentially keep your facilities compliant and in good housekeeping. We're going to have a training about this. There was one in November where we essentially trained staff in how to maintain a clean house. This is pretty much, keep things labeled, address spills, make sure you're doing documenting, a lot of documenting of your programs and maintenance requirements. And then quickly, the pollutant reduction plan then is actually an on-the-ground plan. We talked about because some of these streams are what are considered impaired because they have too much sediment in them. This is actually a plan that looks at how the municipality can reduce these sediment amounts by the regulatory requirement is by 10% over a 5-year period. And for this municipality, that equates to about 25,000 pounds of sediment that needs to be removed. There we go. All right. So for most of the rest of the presentation, I'm going to talk then about the pollutant reduction plan and kind of the implementation of that and kind of where that's at. So the pollutant reduction plan is a 5-year plan, just like the 5-year permit term. They don't necessarily line up. It would be great if they did, but they don't necessarily line up in terms of timing. But actually, there is a benchmark for the pollutant reduction plan implementation of in 2024. So we are actually coming up to the end of the first 5-year pollutant reduction plan implementation area. So within the municipality, there's kind of 2 areas. Let me see if I can get maybe it'll show. Yeah, okay. So there's 2 major areas shown here on the map in red. This Culbertson Run, and unnamed tributaries to Beaver Creek. So you can see they're here in red, and the red means that essentially they're impaired streams. So what the permit says is that you need to reduce by 10%, but you can do it kind of anywhere within your municipal boundaries. And also, you can get credit for things that you've already done. Okay, within the recent past. So when they put this pollution reduction plan together, there were a number of credits that were given for already installed maintenance practices that are reducing sediments. Many of these were in the Hopewell development area. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of them were credited in the Hopewell development, and 2 were privately owned and were given credit. And these are different structures such as detention basins, infiltration basins, or vegetated swales. Okay. So since during the time then of the pollutant reduction plan, there has been implementation of some BMPs in 2021 in Culbertson Run along Hawthorne Drive that were able to help to address that 25,000 pound sediment reduction. And so there were some vegetated swales, infiltration basins. These are all owned by the township, and this was paid for with about a $246,000 Growing Greener grant for this particular set of work. And I'm just going to show you kind of an example of some of the work that was done. Before we were having roadside over here on this side, you can see kind of everything coming off of the road, having erosion down alongside the side of the road. Here in the after, we installed some curbing, and we were able to reduce that erosion and therefore the amount of sediment that was coming off of those areas. Just another picture showing very similar roadside swale erosion. In this one, instead of curbing, there was some vegetated swales that were added. And this allowed for, in this particular instance, a 2.5% sediment reduction. Okay. So the next, so that got the township part of the way towards getting some of their reductions completed. However, as we mentioned, there's a milestone next year, and there was another set of projects that were proposed for Culbertson Run, a stream restoration project. And this project was a natural flow channel design, and it would have addressed stabilizing stream banks, reconnecting the floodplain with and wetland areas there with the stream itself, and restoring riparian buffer areas. This would have, so the costing, you can see the property owner here was the Estates at Hideaway Farms, HOA, and this particular project, had it been funded, which it was not, would have satisfied the remaining pollution reduction requirements for this permit term. However, as I mentioned, the project was not funded. So this would have been, we would have, had it been funded, design and permitting would have been hopefully happening right now, and possibly construction to be completed into next year. So because this was not funded, right now the township has not met fully that pollution reduction, that 10% sediment removal requirement through their pollution reduction plan. So this is an item that needs to be considered for how to address this as we're nearing the end of this PRP and permit renew and in the permit renewal time. And then this is just an update. I believe it was actually at this similar meeting last year when we gave this presentation. There was also the enacting of a updated stormwater ordinance. So that was required both not only by this program but also through Act 167 or stormwater planning through Chester County. And the ordinance was done to be in accordance with the county-wide model ordinance. I'm not going to talk a ton about that other than to say that that was included in your annual report as one of your milestones that you did meet as a township during this last reporting period. So briefly, just to sum up, we're going to be going this next year into a permit renewal term. There are some issues still remaining with meeting PRP requirements through on-the-ground sediment reductions with the Culbertson Run project not being funded, and also additional follow-up and continued interaction with those owners of BMPs that are not compliant or where we haven't been able to have access, maintain or acquire access to be able to inspect those properties. I don't know if there is time for questions from the board. I can take some, or if there's not time, that's fine too.
I have one real quick, and you may have said it and I missed it, but do we get credit for doing inspections on homeowners' properties for their stormwater management?
Through your municipal ordinance, you mean? Yes, that is part of that. Yes, correct. That is included every year in your annual report, and that is credited. Yes.
I have a question on a Culbertson Run restoration. If they're requiring it, where are there funds to help correct it?
So it's a good question.
I mean, that would require such a major tax increase that I'd have to resign as a supervisor. I wouldn't
understand. So I mean, generally, and the approach that was taken is to pursue publicly available grant funds to be able to pay for that. Although there is generally, and I know the township had committed to doing some sort of a matching type of fund to that program. What is required is that you reduce the sediment by 10%. It's not required that you do that particular project. It's not required that you do any particular project. Essentially what it says is the township has a requirement to do this reduction. How you choose to do that, it is up to you, correct? So, but usually in many of these cases, for municipalities, it's one or two big projects that kind of, you know, give you a good bang for the buck. In terms of, you know, it is like many other regulatory programs. Some of them are unfunded mandates.
Some of them.
As you said. And so much of this is, you know, like I said, pursuing public funds. I will say that you are not alone in this boat. Almost all municipalities that we work with, and many statewide, are making progress towards meeting these goals, but they're not going to, at the end of the 5-year period, have met their goal for the same reasons, right? Everyone needs to get money to do these projects on the ground, and so, you know, it's a competitive market to go out and, you know, try to get these funds to put these projects in the ground. So, you know, this is an ever-changing program with the state of Pennsylvania and with EPA. And the important thing that we have found in our experience in dealing with them is that we're continuing to show progress, right? And that even if you haven't made it 100% to the finish line, you have done stuff along the way as well.
What is the punishment and the fine if you don't? Is there?
There can be punishments and fines, yes.
At the end of the day, sometimes it's better to have the punishment and fine and save taxpayers money than it is to be compliant 100%.
So
and I'm not dodging the
no.
we need to
I understand, and I'm trying to give you. I'm trying to think of like. I can't give you a certain number. I can give you some examples. We've had some different municipalities throughout central Pennsylvania that have had inspections by either the state or EPA. One of those municipalities had up to $177,000 fine. Fines are largely at the discretion of whichever regulatory agency you're working with, and you know, they use what they call regulatory discretion. So if they come in and they see that you've been trying to make an effort but you haven't gotten there, you know, you get less fines than if, you know, you're kind of like, well, forget this, we don't, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it could be $1 million project and you get a $177,000 fine. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, you are in this boat with so many other municipalities, and I think, like I said, you know, as we're interacting with DEP and EPA on these with lots of different municipalities, what we're kind of learning is they understand that reality too, right? And they're not necessarily wanting to be vindictive in fining people just to fine people. What they want to do is make sure that the needle is moving, right? So I think that that's really the take-home message, is that as long as we continue to work towards moving that needle, and you're checking the boxes of the things that you can do, and there's a lot of this is in these performance-based things it's a lot less low-hanging fruit, right? Today, me coming and talking to you for half an hour, you can check a box for that. That's a decently low-hanging fruit.
I have an important question.
Yes.
We're supposed to reduce sediment by 25,000 pounds, right?
Correct.
Half a triaxle. It's 10 tons. Mm-hmm. Not a lot. We've already done one project you said that we got some credit for.
Correct. And things.
So what's the bottom line? How much more sediment do we have to remove?
I can follow up with you to get you the number on that.
Only.
Yep.
Well, and here, so let me also
All
say.
we need to do is put a
silt
silt
fence
fence in,
and a
get
backhoe.
twice a year, dig it out, and we've met our goal.
Well,
Not well, we've met our goal.
I would say that
Doesn't tell you how to remove the sediment.
that is correct. So
You-
what
you
I'm trying
probably
to
would
say
have a
is I think that's probably a more creative way than, but I think that, you know, creative solutions are okay, and it's worth a conversation with regulatory agencies to see if it checks a box, right?
They have experience. You can't put the machine in the water, but you can be on the water's edge.
You can be on the edge, but you cannot be in the water. That's correct.
May I perhaps suggest a different course of...
We just solved the world's problems. Let's stop
appreciate
there.
that.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to say, but for the impaired stream segments in East Brandywine Township, there would be no pollution reduction requirement?
That is, according to the program, correct. Yes. If
Okay.
you do not have impaired streams within your municipality, you do not have to have a pollutant reduction plan, and you do not have to then do the 10% reductions.
But we would still have the same 6 minimum control measures to
Also
compliance.
correct.
And we would need to adopt the county's model stormwater ordinance.
Correct.
Those are obligations we're not going to get out of. Which leads me to a follow-up. Is there a planned re-rating of streams? Or is there a possibility that upon re-rating, our streams will be no longer listed as impaired?
It's a good question. Yeah, so the Department of Environmental Protection does, every 2 years, they do what's called an integrated report. And I think their draft 2024 plan is actually out right now. I can follow up on that for you. What that means is every 2 years they do a report on the streams. It doesn't mean that every 2 years they go and reassess all the streams, okay? So to your question, yes, the streams, the intent for the state is to go back and reassess these streams on some sort of frequency. And, you know, that's kind of, that's their discretion what their frequency is, to go back and see. But yes, if there's an assessment that goes back in and says, hey, you know, we are going to go and we're going to reassess this stream, and we found that it's not impaired anymore. It's meeting what, you know, it's supporting healthy aquatic life, and, you know, doesn't have the issues that it has, then that kind of is able to remove part of that requirement from your permit, yes.
Right. So my working hypothesis is, at the point that it was last rated, that section of Culbertson Run was adjacent to a construction site, namely the Hideaway Farms subdivision.
Okay.
That subdivision is now complete, and there are there are post-construction stormwater management features installed and properly functioning. I wonder if, upon re-rating, Culbertson Run would still be impaired.
It's a good question. I can tell you that there are 2 ways to kind of look at getting at that answer to the question. If the township wants to be proactive, you can actually go in and you know, work with somebody to do a reassessment and submit those data to the state for consideration for their listing. Or conversely, you can wait kind of till their you know, process comes back around, which we never really, you know when that might be. So it's a very good question, and you know, if there is definitely a lot of changes that have occurred between when those assessments happened and now, it may be definitely worth a little bit of resources to go out there and do some of that bioassessment to take a look at those streams and see what the current condition is, and then, you know, based on, even just as a screen, you know, and then based on that kind of put together, if they look good, put together some stuff for consideration for the state to look at actually taking a regulatory action.
The gist of my concern is that we're contemplating permanent and expensive repairs for what may be temporary impairments.
So, I mean, I think that you definitely could, in lieu of, since that funding hasn't come through, I mean, a good alternative could be to go out and do an assessment of these streams, see where we're at, and if, you know, you're feeling that if those results show, you know, hey, maybe you have, I mean, it's a good question, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? If we can do something in a more cost-effective and better way, let's do that, right? And save everybody time, money, and use our resources in the most expeditious way possibly. So, I mean, I think that's a really good question, and we're happy to consider, or to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7, subdivisions and zoning applications. Item A, Luke.
Please bear with me while I do some adjusting of cameras and the like. All right. All right, so these next 3 agenda items pertain to recommendations for changes to the Township's subdivision or zoning ordinances as recommended by the Planning Commission. The first agenda item is permission to advertise a zoning map and changes to the Village Commercial District. When last the board considered this proposal from the Planning Commission, the action item was referral for Act 247 review by Chester County. Included in your packet this morning is the review letter that Chester County Planning Commission provided. Upon review by the Planning Commission recommended no change to both the map and the amended ordinance text. And so this time, I respectfully ask the board to authorize staff and the solicitor to advertise the amended map and ordinance for adoption at a future Board of Supervisors meeting.
I'll make a motion to adopt the, did you say ordinance or resolution?
It would be an ordinance.
An ordinance to advertise the zoning map and changes to the Village Commercial District.
And I'm sorry, we had marked on the agenda that the discussion point was Mr. Estes, and I did a whole lot of talking there. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Solicitor?
I saw your name on it. The only thing I would add is the board should keep in mind that the enactment of this requires posting of certain properties and individual letters to property owners in addition to the public notice in the newspaper. So it may take a little more time than the normal zoning ordinance amendment.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Luke, did you say you were recommending we do this at a future meeting? Did I miss that?
No. So the action, if the vote from the Board of Supervisors is granting permission to advertise, one, there's some costs. We're postage, some printing that goes in the newspaper, and it will bring the proposed change to a wider audience. So we have a point where we actually deliberate and authorize advertisement. This is a thing that's we're really getting close to official. So we are advertising for adoption at a future meeting.
All right, I'll second.
Discussion? Jason?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And item B, permission to advertise trails modification for Act 247.
Yeah. Similar to the first action item this morning, this is a recommendation from the Planning Commission, but unlike the first action item, this is a step earlier. The consideration this morning is to refer a draft ordinance change and a amended exhibit to Chester County for 247 review. The purpose of these changes are to allow for a wider range of trail surface options than is allowed in the current code. Our experience with recent developments is that there have been some trail features shown in environmentally sensitive areas, and we wanted to offer a wider range of trail options for developers to construct.
I'll make a motion to advertise the trail modifications, not advertise, advertise. Is that the right word? Isn't it?
But just
submit?
submit the
For the 247 review.
right. You're making a motion to direct staff to refer the draft ordinance to the county for Act 247 review.
I'll second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And advertise the landscape modifications for adoption.
All right. This too has gone through Act 247 review. Included in your packet is the county's letter reviewing the draft ordinance. Similar to the zoning map, Planning Commission on review of Chester County's comments made no amendments to the model ordinance. So at this time, I'm asking the board's permission to advertise for adoption the amendments to the landscaping requirements in the township's code.
All right, I'll make a motion to advertise the landscape modifications for adoption in our code.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance and resolutions for consideration. Resolution 9 of 2023. Mr. Esty.
You have before you two resolutions this morning. The first one is Resolution 9, and this has the effect of transferring $550,000 from the general fund checking account to the general fund investment capital reserve account. And this resolution and the next one are ones you typically consider at the end of the year.
All right. Everybody understand? It's basically funding our capital. Pardon me? Right. So I'll make a motion that
Authorizing directing.
yeah, right. I was just too many pages. Resolution 9. I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 9 of 2023, authorizing and directing the transfer of unencumbered funds.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And Resolution 10 of 2023 is a resolution establishing the tax rate for general township purposes. The tax rate for fire services and the annual refuse and recycling fee for calendar year 2024.
Again, Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution you typically consider in December of each year. The title you read really summarizes the purpose of this resolution. The tax rate for general townships purposes remains at 2.5 mils, so this resolution establishes that rate at 2.5 mils for 2020. Fire services tax is set at 0.530 mils. That's a slight increase over this year. So the total millage established by this resolution for those two taxes is 3.030 mils. This resolution also modestly increases the for municipal waste hauling and recycling collection and hauling. The collection and hauling of refuse is increased to $200 per year, and the fee for the recycling collection and hauling is increased to $100 per year. $10 increases per fee. Would that be right, Mr. Revin? I don't recall at this time.
I'm sorry, I'm looking into an earlier statement there. I did not think that that either millage represented an increase.
No,
Let me
I thought
verify
the
that.
fire tax stayed the same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me verify the first
That's what I'm looking
first,
for.
and then I will get to the second as to what what the changes are.
That the fire tax remains at .530.
Okay, so I'm projecting on the screen the, let's start with the real estate tax.
But just.
So the fire service tax replaced the hydrant tax, which was assessed on properties near fire taxes, which has been repealed. The assessment is charged at a total of .53 mils for 2022. So the rate in the resolution for fire services is not an increase. That's the
correct rate, but it's not an increase.
Okay, then
and now
be a correction in the third whereas paragraph.
And while we're talking about that, the refuse increase is primarily due to the county's tipping fee went up. What was it? Went up $4 a ton or something?
well, let's order of operations here. So first question was the fire millage an increase? It is listed correctly in the draft resolution, but it is not an increase. Second question that we had was, how much are we increasing the trash and recycling fees charged per household? For 2023, the cost of refuse removal was $170 per year, and the cost of recycling was $90 per year. In the resolution before you, those rates for 2024 would be $200 and $100 respectively. So that represents a $40 increase per household. The third question we had before is why, and yes, there are among the reasons is the tipping fee at the landfill, but perhaps most significantly is that the second-class township code mandates that contracts with waste haulers be rebid every 5 years. This year is such a period. We will be soliciting bids for the same or a new hauler under a new contract. It is anticipated that rates will be significantly higher associated with that contract. Also, in addition to the fees for trash tipping, we also pay fees for recycle tipping. But unlike trash, that varies based on the market for post-consumer goods. At various points in the current contract, that has been a net revenue, and in the current rate, it is a net loss. So it is the price we get per ton of material we collect curbside as recyclable varies from a profit center to a loss center, and it's currently in a significant loss mode. So it's necessary to come to. Right. I just got to one at a time on the question side there.
Any other questions on the? I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 10 of 2023 establishing the tax rate for the general township purposes and the tax rate for the fire services tax and the annual refuse and recycling fees for calendar year 2024. Is there a second?
Friendly interjection, as amended by the
Whiteout. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. For all you out there, no tax increase. Just a garbage increase.
I almost gave you one.
No, you just used the word.
number was correct. The word it's the
All right. public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Notices there's been no executive sessions have been held between Friday, November 17th, and the AM session on 12/7. That's today. There will be an executive session after the foundation meeting today. And I want to remind everybody there is a foundation meeting. We will take a quick 5-minute break to get set up for the foundation.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in the agenda that's distributed at the back of the meeting, it references the executive session is for the purpose of personnel matters.
Yes.
I think we should announce that it will be for the purposes of personnel matters and real estate.
Yes, well, we added real estate. Okay.
In addition, I take an opportunity to announce that we're going to have a special session due to, mea culpa, I did not provide the appropriate information to get the preliminary budget advertised in time. And so the second-class township code requires that there be 20 days for public comment on a preliminary budget. The ad was not placed 20 days before the 21st, and so there will be a special meeting of the Board of Supervisors
December 27th.
On December 27th.
Duly advertised, etc.
Exactly, just to adopt the budget.
That's at 9:00 a.m. The advertisement went in the newspaper yesterday.
Yes. 9 a.m.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.